All right. Good afternoon, everybody, or good evening, as the case may be. We just got home about, hour ago. And when you heat with a wood stove, there's nothing much worse than coming home after you've been out for 6-7 hours to a cold dwelling. And that's what happened here. As soon as we got home, I had to bundle up and go right down to do the evening chores, and Danielle lit the wood stove. But I just am feeling cold to the bone. Now, I don't like to bank our wood stove up for the long term, like I know some of you do. Our friend Hippie Chick, she has shown how she banks it up, and she can get 18 hours out of it. She did a video recently about that. And our friend Lee and Barry up in Canada, our friends, they have a wood stove a lot like Hippie Chick's. It's a regular heating stove, whereas ours is a cook stove. And so our firebox is very small as opposed to a heating stove where you have a much larger fire. Anyway, whatever. So Danielle got the stove going, and that's good now. It's starting to warm up in here. Starting to feel good. Danielle just made some tea, and we thought we would sit down. And what were we going to talk? I guess we're going to talk about how the Gathering Basket Homestead came to be, as much as it is. And I think when we started, we didn't really think we were going to be homesteaders. I don't even know what a homesteader is. I don't know if you do or not, but I know the Nearings, I think they used the word homesteader, didn't they?
Probably. And that was the first inspiration.
Yeah, I think
us.
so. We were down in New Jersey at the time, believe it or not. Danielle owned this beautiful gift shop on the Jersey Shore, and she roped me into helping her. And so I went down to on the condition that I would only stay a maximum of 2 years, because she really wanted to retire from that and shut it down. And so we thought I'd been in Maine I moved to Maine from upstate New York in 2003, and Danielle and I met through music. We both played fiddles, believe it or not, and we played Canadian maritime style fiddle music that you would see at a contra dance. And so a lot of interesting Celtic-y kind of, some of it is Scottish, some of it is American Appalachian music, but anyway, that's a story for another day. Anyway, that's how we met, because I was a moderator on a forum for fiddles. It was called Fiddle Hangout. In fact, I think I'm still listed as a moderator there. And so Danielle joined the Fiddle Hangout, and I don't think I had to, tone you down or anything. Danielle saw a picture of some of the musical instruments that I built, and so she was very impressed by that. And then, so I clicked on her description and saw that she was from Manasquan, New Jersey, and I sent her a message saying that when I was very little, we used to summer in Manasquan, New Jersey. So that kind of gave us something to talk about. Anyway, we were friends ever since then. Right?
Yeah. And I think you said, why don't you come up to, there's something called Fiddle Camp. You might really enjoy that. It's a week, and you're living in cabins in the Maine woods, and there are tents. Teachers, and cabins and tents. And you learn to pick up music by ear, which was really fun. And you were trying to keep up with the group. And I guess it would start on, you'd arrive Sunday night, and then you got all set up with your tent and your things all, you settle in. And then there's a pizza dinner. And then the next morning, you better be ready for breakfast, and you go down there at 6:30 in the morning for coffee. And it was no trouble getting up early, because you just couldn't wait to get that coffee and also see what, everything looked like set up and for the day.
Right, but we were fiddlers back then.
Yeah.
And so we had that one thing in common, the music. And and I don't know, it doesn't matter, but we just started talking back and forth and we became quite close. And we decided during that time period that we had a lot of the same ideals in common, like living conservatively, living minimally, if you can imagine that, living with cooking good, clean food that you source, you source good organic food, and both of us had been gardeners for a long time before we even met each other. Isn't that right?
And interested in organic food.
Yeah.
For me, that started in the 60s.
Yeah. And so I had a variety of jobs. It doesn't matter. I've mentioned them before. But a variety of jobs. I guess I had one anchor job, which was working in retail sales. But I had a bunch of other little jobs also. And I was living in upstate New York in a big Queen Anne Victorian in a very small hamlet along the Delaware River. It was very nice. And my dad lived here in Maine, my dad and his then wife. Who would be my stepmother. So my dad had been trying for years to talk me into coming to Maine. And I didn't want to go to Maine because I was in upstate New York and I had a regular job, and why would I go to Maine? But the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like it could be a good idea, and it just became a good time in my life. I was in my early 50s at the time, and I said, you know what, by golly, I think I will move to Maine. And
that was a big change. That was a big decision.
Big decision. But so from the time I agreed to move to Maine till the time that I actually drove up to Maine to live, during that 6-month period, my dad actually passed away. So I came on up and I talked to my stepmother, because the idea had been for my dad to give me half of the acreage here, and we were going to build me a small dwelling, as it were. And so anyway, I came up and I talked to my stepmom, and she said, well, why don't you just come on up then? And so she wasn't going to help me build a house. So, but this house has several bedrooms, and I just moved into one of the bedrooms. And anyway, long story short, I finished my novel, and I was also doing art shows with my wrought iron work, and I had one more big show to do, so I did that. And I started looking for work, and I eventually found the same kind of work that I was doing back in New York. And that was okay, so I was doing that and just kind of plodding along. And I had a garden up here, not the gardens that you see Danielle and I tending down below nowadays, but I had a garden over here. You don't know where I'm pointing to, but over here in the dooryard. We call it the dooryard in Maine. So we have a dooryard garden that my dad used to always tend. So I started growing in there, and my dad was quite an avid gardener, and so that was okay. And then when Danielle and I first started coming up here, we also used that garden. But the funny thing is that the trees that were around the garden got taller and taller, and you'd be surprised how fast trees grow when you are able to notice it like that. So anyway, I was gardening, and I met Danielle through the music, the online music forum, and then we started talking to each other offline, and by sending letters, handwritten.
We loved writing letters.
Yeah.
Both of us loved writing letters.
Yeah, handwritten letters. So much so that Danielle even bought me a beautiful fountain pen, and that I love using. And so, yeah, we wrote letters, and we became very close. And so that was starting in maybe November or December of the previous year, 2009. And then 2010, by May, I thought, you know what? What if I came down to visit anyway? We became very close. And Danielle needed help with her store, so I agreed to go down. I actually quit my job up here. Not that it was any great job, but I quit my job up here to go down and help her.
Well, you knew a lot about retail.
I knew a lot about retail.
More than I did. I inherited the store. I had never done retail before. And I was an artist. I was a calligrapher for the Supreme Court of New Jersey. I would write documents and certificates and lawyers' licenses, things like that. And I was doing house portraits in ink, pen and ink. So I had a little business going there.
And when I went down, the two of us would go in the apartment that we lived in. There was a third floor. What do you call it? A third floor or second floor? The loft
was third, yeah.
Yeah, where Danielle, it was set up as her calligraphy studio or art studio. And when I went down and moved in, I was in the middle of building a violin at first. I was actually building a violin because I have to have something with my hands to do, build something. So I built, it was originally going to be for me, but somewhere along the line, even though we were both playing the fiddle, I decided that, you know what? What if I took up the cello? Because we saw one or two performers where there was a fiddler and a cellist. And what if I played the cello to your fiddle? And we thought that would be an interesting combination. And lo and behold, at a local violin shop, we found an affordable antique cello. And so we bought that, and I took lessons, and I started to get quite comfortable with it. And so I decided, you know what, the fiddle that I'm building for Danielle, the fiddle I was building for me, I'm going to give it to Danielle because she was the fiddler. But so I started building myself a cello after that fiddle was complete. And so that's what happened there. I got about half of it done before we moved to Maine. Now that's the thing. When I went down to help you, I didn't want to be away from Maine, and I didn't want to go to New Jersey, even though I was born in New Jersey. I didn't want to live in New Jersey. Not that there's anything terribly wrong with it. I had gotten to the point where I really liked Maine. And so I said to Danielle that, I'll go down and I want to have this thing, because Danielle wanted to close the store, close the business, sell the building, and then go on with her life. And so we decided, we talked about, well, where would we go? And so we decided, well, we'll come up here to Maine. And we did. It was kind of difficult at first. I know when I first moved to Maine, it was a difficult transition for me. I didn't know anyone. And Danielle felt much the same way, so I knew how she was feeling. But, little bit by little bit, we joined a local fiddle group. And so we were playing, we joined that group, and we started playing for dances. Not just the two of us, a whole group of us, maybe 8 or 10 of us.
And weren't those people we met them at fiddle camp, didn't we?
Some of them went to fiddle camp. That's not where we met them. We met them, at the practice sessions at maybe at George's house, but that really helped to acclimate Danielle and me too, even more so.
That was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. I actually miss playing music for the country. There would be a baked bean supper ahead of time.
Yeah. They'd have the local supper at a grange. Yep. And then on the second floor of the grange, of course, there's the dance hall and a stage.
So much fun.
And it was great. It was a lot of fun.
But before we even moved up here full time, we started studying gardening and winter gardening. And we bought some of Elliot Coleman's books, the Winter Garden or the Winter Harvest Handbook and different ones, and we started while we were in New Jersey, we started plotting out the garden beds and everything, and
What we wanted to grow.
Yeah,
that was fun.
We wanted to build a small hoop house, and so we were chomping at the bit to get up here and start this. But what I wanted to say was, when we were up in that artist loft, Danielle doing her house portraits, and me working on the musical instrument, we would listen to the radio.
Oh, yeah, station WBAI out of
Yep.
New York.
And who was on it?
Gary Null.
Gary Knoll, Ralph Nader.
Yeah, he
Although
would
he
come
was a
on that
guest.
show. He would be one of the guests.
Yep, and
yeah. What, Chris Hedges?
Chris Hedges. Yep, Chris Hedges.
That was a big eye-opener.
Yeah, those three. And so they started talking about things that would go on in the world, and we won't go into those things. I'm sure you have your ideas, and we have our ideas. It doesn't matter. We're not going to push our ideas on you or really even talk about them. But it started to open our eyes, and we started to look at how the world runs in a different way. And the more we listened, and then of course you listen to them, and then you start to listen to other people who are kind of in the same.
And we learned about a lot of good books to read and
Yeah.
from them. So that was part of the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got up here, did I show them the
You didn't.
I didn't show them. I think I did.
Really?
But this book, if you haven't read it, talks about homesteading.
It's called The Good Life.
And we did not even know the word homesteading too much until we found that book.
Right.
And
The
so-
Nearings. And they
so-
started in where? Where was their
Vermont.
first?
In Vermont.
Okay.
I mean, they met in New York,
Yeah.
but their first homestead was in Vermont. But then there's too many skiers that they.
The ski resorts moved in and took the trees down, and
Yeah, and so
they were not happy with the traffic
So
and the
they
loss
moved-
of trees, and they said, let's go to Maine.
Yeah, they moved to the coast of Maine, and we never got to meet them, but we did go to their house, and we had a nice tour of their house and property. And we even have a comfrey plant that had been Helen Nearing's. So we were kind of getting an idea about this term homesteading. We didn't know that we were homesteading. We thought we were just trying to grow our
Gardening.
food
Yeah.
and live in a kind of a conservative, healthy,
Slow.
slow is a good
Slow
word.
food.
Slow is a good word for me. I tell
Yeah.
you. And so that's what we were trying to do. So we started. We had the smartphone, and I would take pictures. I love to take pictures, and so I would take pictures of plants. And with the smartphone, you could take a little video movie. And I would take a video. I would say to Danielle, we got to get out of the greenhouse, and you got to show them how we're doing. So Danielle would be in the video on Facebook. This was on Facebook. But I found, as time went on, I was frustrated because I couldn't find the videos that we had uploaded to Facebook because of everything else that I was uploading also. So that was frustrating. And but we actually, the store of Danielle's in New Jersey was called Gatherings. And in fact, Gatherings came from a different store that she worked at.
Well, it was the preceding store to Gatherings, which was Gathering Basket was the original store.
Yeah.
And it was on Main Street in Manasquan.
Yeah.
And then the store was moved to
Yeah.
Broad Street.
Shortened to Gatherings.
Shortened to Gatherings.
So when we started doing what we're doing, and then we kind of figured out that, hey, everybody says that we're homesteaders. Okay, so why don't we call it Gathering Basket Homestead?
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. And we don't, we just garden kind of intensively, with food prices being what they are. And
Yeah, we learned that today.
and food quality being what it is. My goodness, it's gotten so that there's hardly anything in the grocery store that we would really want to take home. Not much. So,
They have an organic section and also local. I mean, Hannaford's in Newport does have signs that say local, and to each bin they'll say, these cauliflowers are from Corinna or from Stetson. And so people like that. They like buying local, I must say. And it sells well.
Yeah, it does. So we started with the food, and then eventually we got chickens. And I mean, what would a homestead be without laying hens? And then we can't figure out, Danielle thinks it was my idea to get goats. But she wanted to learn how to make cheese. So we ended up getting a couple of goats. At one point we had 7 goats. But Emma down there right now was one of the original goats. And we got to the point where what do we want to do? I mean, Danielle was spending pretty much all day making dairy products, value added dairy products like cheese and butter and yogurt and so forth and so on.
Yeah, those were long hours. To make cheddar. Whew. Yeah. And then you have to babysit it for months.
And we were getting older, and we wanted to start slowing down a little bit. So when the goats we eventually got rid of 5 of the goats, and we kept the 2, and then one of the 2 passed away. So now we're left with Emma, but Emma does not want to be bred anymore. She won't take, which is fine.
She liked the handsome buck that we took her to, and he certainly liked her. But somewhere in her brain, if her brain could control what was going on, she did not, now what is the word? Settle.
Right.
Yeah. Even though she liked Stanley, and she would get pretty happy when we would, get her in the car because she knew she was going to see her boyfriend. Yeah. But anyway, we got home, and after another month or so,
21 days.
There we go. She's an estrus again. I think Emma does not want to do this again.
Yep. So we said, okay, you win. But we're not going to get rid of you or anything. We're going to keep you as a forever
goat.
Yeah, we got her when she was 5 months old, I think it was.
And she makes wonderful soil amendments.
Yes, she's very useful. And
she certainly does. She feeds the soil, and it's great. She's an important part. And of course the hens do the same thing.
Yes, so that's what we have now. If we were younger, we might think about getting a couple of feeder pigs or pigs for meat.
We came close.
Woo! And maybe even some chickens for meat birds. If we were, but we are. I'm starting to get a little bit tired, and I don't know about you.
I'm definitely tired. Although I seem to wake up around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. Those are my old habits. When I lived in New Jersey, I would get all kinds of enthusiasm at those hours, and I'd get an idea, and I'd want to go and write something or draw something.
But then we're starting to get the hang of gardening,
which wears you out.
Which does wear you out,
as most of you know.
But it's good for you.
Yeah.
But then we started to think about other things, like it's one thing to eat good, clean food, but what about wearing good, clean fabrics? And so...
Well, you were interested in history. You were so interested in the 18th century.
Yep.
That's what started it.
Always have been. And I used to work at a living history museum when I lived in upstate New York. I used to demonstrate blacksmithing. And there's a couple of living history museums up here. And I told Danielle that I'd like to volunteer at one. I was learning how to spin at the spinning wheel, obviously, and I thought that I would want to do that.
Stephanie could have been a drummer. She's so coordinated. The hands are going, the feet are going, everything is going. I'm not like that. I find spinning so difficult. And if I don't do it for a couple of weeks, I will just forget how. And that's just not my talent. But I did enjoy it. In fact, I think it was 2 years ago that I spent about the winter. I was watching Harry Rogers, and he was a great teacher, and I finally got the knack. And I spun and I plied. I have a tote full of things ready to knit. So now I have to learn how to knit.
Yeah. And so I thought that, well, if I'm going to work at a living history museum, I should have the clothing for it. And you know something, I kind of got so that I really like the 18th century clothing more than modern clothing. I actually did. And you look kind of funny when you're in town, maybe, maybe not.
There's a great story with that one.
What's that?
When the COVID hit.
Oh yeah, when COVID hit.
We had already, though, been interested in sewing. We had shifts, we had petticoats,
outfits,
aprons, bedgowns,
yep,
caps.
petticoats, yeah. We had everything.
Yeah.
But we thought that one day we would work at a museum.
Yeah.
Or sometimes, every once in a while, I would wear my clothing here.
And we did go and visit and wore the clothing. Didn't we?
To who?
Oh, remember that place? And then we went up the hill and we had an Irish lunch. What is that place?
Oh, yeah.
In Augusta?
Well, we didn't have our 18th century
We didn't wear
clothes.
any?
No. But we did. We have a couple of Amish friends. They moved away to Montana. But when they lived here, we were very close to them. And when we went out to visit them, they invited us to their church. And so we would wear our 18th century clothing to the Amish church.
Boy, was that fun.
Oh, yeah. They were very interested.
When we landed, they'd say, "What sect are you from?"
Yeah,
they had never seen clothes like what we were wearing. You know, beautiful linen and color.
They were crummy polyesters.
Whoa. They're very restricted in what they can wear. And,
Yeah.
oh my. Our friend was saying, "Oh, wow, that's nice."
Can you get me the catalog? Because they don't do internet.
Yeah, and I guess they order clothes, a lot of them. There's a certain...
They sew it. They order, they might take a big
well, they
shopping-
sew with the polyester. But she really appreciated when she saw and felt the quality of linen. I could tell she wanted some. And we said, "We can get you some fabric."
Yeah.
But I think, not allowed. You can't stand out.
Yeah,
And
that's
that
the thing.
would have been outstanding. So, anyway.
Yeah, so...
I felt a little bad.
But during the COVID, as kind of a form of being different or resilience or protest, if you will.
Well, first, of course, they had you washing your hands and wearing masks. Well, that lasted about a week with us because we started watching and listening to some of the prominent doctors. And
Well, be careful. We don't want to get
well,
the video
that's
taken
okay.
down from
No,
YouTube.
but anyway, we learned some different things, and we said, you know what, that mask really gives me agita.
You keep talking. I got to check the fire.
You know, it made me nervous. I did not like anything covering my face like that. And so we thought, well, we're going to wear our what I called peaceful clothes. And that was 18th century clothes. So we stepped out and went to town, out in public in our 18th century garb. And so after the first week, we did not want to wear the masks. And there were signs at the supermarket. You had to wear a mask. So, okay, here we were in 18th century garb. We had the mask on. We'd get in there, but no sooner did we get down to the right in the produce aisle, the masks came off. Whew! And so we just went around doing our shopping, and nobody bothered us. Wow, what a miracle. Nobody demanded, where's your mask or anything like that. And I thought, this is great. And we made friends with people. We met people who were very interested in what we were wearing and liked it. And it turned out to be quite a gift. Anyway.
Yeah, so that was good. I just put a couple logs on the fire.
Okay.
And,
But that was like a kind of soft resistance.
yeah.
And we didn't, if you have a homestead, people will say, we hate to leave the homestead, and you tend to stay at home where your work is.
Yeah.
And so you don't get out that much. And so when you do go out, sometimes it's a little uncomfortable or some surprises. And we were going out to shop, and there would be signs. You have to have a mask. We get up to the door. Sorry, I can't wear it. It gives me agita. I can't breathe. And we would leave. Mm-hmm. And I felt like a kind of a resistance. But anyway, that was a very good experience.
Yeah. So then, little bit by little bit, we started wearing the 18th century clothing more and more. And I think at some point last winter or the winter before, that I just started wearing the clothing all the time. I just prefer the 18th century styles of clothing, and I figured, why not? If it's what makes me happy, as long as Danielle doesn't mind, if it's what makes me happy, then I'll wear it. But the other thing is that I can make this type of clothing. This is an 18th century style men's shirt, and I made this out of pure linen, and I've made maybe 6 or 7 of these shirts, and in addition to everything else that we've made.
You made me too.
I made you 2 of
Real
them.
nice plaids.
Yeah, I've got 5 or 6 of them. And but then it's kind of a goal of mine to have all of my clothing be clothing that I or we made out of real cloth, not acrylics or polyesters or nylons. And so I don't think I would know how to make a pair of Carhartt pants. Might be able to get a pattern, but I just thought, well, why don't I just make petticoats? And they're very comfortable to wear, and so that's when I started wearing my petticoat all the time. And there are some times, like last spring, I used the chainsaw one day, and I didn't wear a petticoat then. I don't want to be silly about it, but yeah, so that's why we wear the clothing that we wear. And it's not a strict rule or anything, like it is with the Anabaptist religions. No, it's not a rule, it's just what we want to do. So, like today, for example, we went down to the big town, and I wore Carhartt pants, but I wore my 18th century men's shirt. And but usually when we do our weekly errands, we wear our 18th century clothing.
Yeah.
But again, it's not a hard and fast rule that we do. So if I don't feel like doing it, then I won't, but I usually do. But same thing with Danielle. If she doesn't want to wear her clothing, her 18th century clothing, she doesn't have to. Because we don't have a rule like that. It's just what we want to do.
But I like wearing it, locally. Yeah. And today I didn't. I wore Carhartts. But I did find that once I was wearing the shift and the petticoats more and more, and to do gardening, I bought a black canvas apron, because when I'm gardening, I need to kneel down, and I don't want to do that much laundry. It would have to be done, a lot of it by hand, and I don't have that kind of time. So when I wear the black apron, it goes below my knees. I can kneel down and do some messy, work in the soil, and I don't get the clothing dirty. So I found, this is really okay. Unless I'm doing something really sloppy, and then I'll say, no, I don't want to wreck my shift. I'm going to wear something else. And so, you adapt. Yeah. But I do find that the petticoats, as long as there's not too many of them, because in the 18th century, they layered them and layered them just to keep warm.
Sometimes I wear 3 petticoats. People often comment, are you warm enough? How do you stay warm with the petticoats? Well, I have another secret, but I often wear 2 or 3 petticoats, but I also put on a pair of long, it's actually like a pair of pajama bottoms that I put on underneath the petticoats. So I don't want to be silly about it either. But I think that for me anyway, one of the goals is, and at my age, I'll never achieve this goal, but is to, I thought I heard a funny thing. But anyway, to just wear what I made myself. Now, lots of times you'll see me oftentimes wearing one of these, what is it, acrylic? That jacket?
Yeah, it is.
It's
or a polyester fleece. They're cozy and they're warm and they zip up. And you see them everywhere.
Yeah, but the zippers always fail after I've had them for about a year.
They don't last.
Plus, one of the commenters pointed out that when you wash those things, they release a lot of, what is it called, microfibers or something like that?
Nanoparticles, plastic. Yeah. And they're finding it in people's bloodstreams, of all things.
So that's not a good thing.
I don't think I want that.
So I'm making my own jacket. I'll show them, real quick here. The one jacket that I made. And I'm going to make another one for the shoulder seasons. But this is a jacket that I made, a couple of winters ago. It's tailored and it's completely lined. And what else? I made my own buttons. It's a double-breasted jacket.
And buttonholes?
Yeah.
I helped.
Yeah, Danielle did half of the buttonholes, thank goodness, because there's, I think, 22 of them on here. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but one day maybe I'll put it on for y'all. But
or when you make the next jacket.
Oh, when I'm going to make another one of these, but with a little bit lighter weight wool and a little bit lighter weight lining for the shoulder seasons, like, the fall and the spring. And I plan to make one. I've got the fabric already, and I'm going to use the same pattern pretty much.
Yeah.
And when I make that, that's going to be a long documentary for that also. So that's one of my goals, is I'll probably never achieve it, but to just wear clothing that I've made. And even now, when we go someplace, even like today, where we wore like modern pants, but I wore this shirt because this shirt I made myself. And so my goal is to wear at least something that I've made. It's kind of a silly thing, but it's just me. And
well, it's a special kind of independence.
It is, but the other thing is that we have been doing some research, and we've learned that there is way too much clothing being produced, and also too many books, I think. But too much clothing is being manufactured, and the big companies, the big stores, what they can't sell, they take their labels off and send it to the next layer down, who puts their labels on.
Or not. Value City, Costco.
Yeah, what's that? Burlington Coat Factory?
Yeah, Marshalls.
Oy. Ross for Less. Martin's in Maine. And so these places get this kind of clothing, and then what they can't sell goes to thrift stores and consignment shops. And then what they can't sell goes to, I don't know where it goes, but it gets bundled up.
The dump.
It gets baled up, and it gets sent to third world countries.
It gets sent away.
Oh, it goes away. And then
there's never an away unless you're sending it to Mars, maybe.
When it lands at that third world country, there are people on the shore who bid. It's like an auction, and they bid. They look at the bales as they're being derricked off, and they bid for the bale. And if you win the bid and you pay for that bale of clothing, then you cart it home somehow, and then they cut the bands and they sort through the thing, and
they know their customers, and they know what will sell, and they get pretty smart about it, and so they select what they know they can sell, but the rest, unfortunately, gets thrown into a river or a forest or a lake.
Sure.
And we've seen videos of what that looks like.
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare.
So as my own little kind of a
kills the fish.
Personal protest against that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to consume. I want to consume as little modern factory-made clothing as I can. One, because I don't like the fabrics, and two, because I don't like the industry. There's just too much being made. So I'll make my own. I'll add to it, I guess you could say. So,
but the kind of clothes that you make will last, I mean, in the 18th century, they didn't throw this stuff away. Sometimes if it were really irreparably worn, they'd cut it up and use it for patching or making a smaller garment.
Well,
or they save it, they'd have it in their will. Linen shifts were written into the will and passed on to the next generation. It's very interesting.
And that cap I'm getting ready to begin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm using an old shift
Yeah, that's
for the
right.
fabric in this cap. We'll talk about that more when we get into that. But anyway, that's about all I've got.
Yeah, well, that's enough, right?
Just a little, yeah. We've gone way over in time, which is what I usually do anyway. So I guess that's about it for this history of how the Gathering Basket Homestead started,
And developed.
how and why, and so we'll just keep going on like this. So going forward, I'm not sure what I'm doing tomorrow, which is Saturday, for a video. I'm actually editing the flax to linen video. It's all kind of put together. I just need to trim it here and there and make it more so that it flows better. And then I'll be putting that up. It's about an hour and a half long right now. It was 2.5 hours long.
Oh, one thing we did today, we picked up seed starting soil.
Yes.
So
We're going to be starting onions in 2 to 3 weeks.
so exciting.
Between, about 2.5 weeks, we'll be starting onions and leeks and shallots. So alliums, if you will. So, so that's about all we got for you now. I think we're going to warm up some soup, aren't we?
Yep.
And, that's about it. So, thanks for watching, and we hope we covered everything.
And got a few giggles.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.